All right. Well, hello. This is Dr. Rob Beyer and Dr. Dan McClure, and we're here to talk to you about the class that you're taking with us, which is called History, Morality, and Ethics in the 19th Century American West, Red Dead Redemption 2. So in this episode of our podcast today, we're going to talk a little bit about ourselves, introduce you to us. You can get to know us a little bit. We're going to talk about how this course is a kind of a blend of history, philosophy, and sort of engaging with these areas in video games. And then we'll talk a little bit about the structure of the course, regular assignments, and how we'll turn those in and sort of what we'll expect from you. So I'll start with the introduction of myself. As I said earlier, my name is Rob Beyer. I teach in the Department of History and Philosophy here at Fort Hays State University. I'm an assistant professor of philosophy. I'm interested in lots of different things. As this class probably indicates, I'm interested in video games. In terms of my philosophical interests, I do a lot of philosophy of religion, world religion, metaphysics, and what's sometimes called comparative philosophy, which is really kind of interdisciplinary, intercultural philosophical work. So, Dr. McClure?
And I'm Dr. Dan McClure. I'm a U.S. historian. I focus on popular culture, capitalism, and I teach world history, African American history, foreign policy, that sort of stuff. And then I have, with pop culture, I like to, we're both, Rob and I are going into, video games and sort of bringing that into teaching and experimenting with using video games as teaching tools.
That's right. Yeah. And so this is the second time that we've taught this course. So it's a relatively new course. So even though we've done it once, it's still a little experimental. This course is, as the title suggests, History, Morality, and Ethics in the 19th Century American West, Red Dead Redemption 2. So the way that we thought about this course is we thought, it would be really interesting for students to, and for us, because both of us play these games, to play through Red Dead Redemption 2. And in our conversations about this game, we both noticed that there's a lot of really historically rich and interesting content in the game. Of course, sometimes the game gets stuff wrong, but there's also just an interesting kind of engagement with history in the game. And if any of you have played the game, you probably already know that the game has several points where you kind of make moral decisions or ethical decisions, right? You can choose to go one way or another. You can choose to treat people one way or another. And a sub-area of philosophy, a kind of central area of philosophy, is ethics and ethical theory, applied ethics, meta-ethics, that kind of stuff. And so in our conversation, we thought, it would be really interesting to do a course where we use this video game as kind of a pedagogical tool or a vehicle that would allow students to engage with this, broader ethical theory, this kind of philosophical area, as well as, kind of immerse themselves in history a little bit and see how after having those having the game experiences, but also reading historical scholarship, reading philosophical scholarship, that they could apply their understanding of history and of ethics to the game content as well. And so that's really kind of what we're going to be doing in this class. We're going to expect you to do a lot of reading and spend some time every week. I would suggest at least an hour, but maybe more, playing Red Dead Redemption 2. And we hope that, because this course will have a lot of reading and a lot of video game playing, we've tried to kind of keep the assigned work relatively minimal, but still allow it to function to assess your level of understanding, your mastery of the course concepts and content. Is there anything, Dan, that you want to say about just sort of the idea of the course before we get into the assessments?
Yeah. So the main thing you want to do is, make sure you have, and this is funny to say out loud, make sure you have time to play your video game.
That's right.
Because, we did it in the summer. We only had 4 weeks, so it was a bit tight. But I think across 15, 16 weeks, you probably should be able to get through the end and into the epilogue.
Yes. Yeah.
And really it's just the reading. There's only 3 assigned books: Heather Cox Richardson's West from Appomattox, which is sort of a history from 1860 to think 1902 or 1900, something like that. So it takes you up through to when the video game takes place. And then there's a new book that just came out, Tor Olson, who I teaches in Tennessee, I think. But his book is Red Dead's History, and so he's been using the game to teach history. And it's sort of it's really fast read. You can get through the chapters in there, and you can almost hold your breath. Um, but it'll be fun because you're in it. You'll be playing the game, and then you're going to be reading a history book that directly is referencing the game. So that'll be a good comparison. And we're going to hold off on that book towards the end. So we'll get through Richardson, but then the other book is Russ Schaefer Landau's The Fundamentals of Ethics. Edition 5 is fine, but I think it's edition 6, which is the
Yeah,
newest.
that's right. The sixth is the newest. If you've got anything 5 or later, it's probably fine. And it's really a kind of basic ethics textbook. It's pretty widely used and well known. And if this class is listed as a philosophy and history undergraduate class, but also as a grad level history course. So we do have some additional readings for graduate students in history. It's also the case that some of you, if you're philosophy majors, may have already taken an ethics course where you covered all of the Schaefer-Landau material. And if so, there's additional ethics material that we will use that'll be freely available to you that we will provide. And you can kind of engage at that level if you've already read this text. So,
Yeah, and for the grad students, there's Patricia Nelson Limerick's The Legacy of Conquest, which is sort of a classic in the field of the history of the West. There is Greg Grandin's more recent The End of the Myth, which talks about the use of the frontier in American history and American politics from the colonial era up through, I think it's 2019. And then there's a book, Walter Hickson's American Settler Colonialism. Hickson is a old school foreign policy diplomatic history historian, and he plugs settler colonial theory into U.S. history, and it moves up through about I think it's the Spanish-American War. So he covers the same territory. Then there's T.J. Jackson Lear's No Place of Grace, which it really talks about some of the cultural tension of the era, and you'll see this in the conversations between Arthur and the rest of the gang and other people about trying to get freedom, and civilization's too constricting, and then this idea of the West, you're free, it's open, and it's not so civilized. And really that TJ Jackson Lears gives us really good language and historical context to think about that. And then the last one is a really fun book. It's Lewis Warren's Buffalo Bill's America, and it's the history of Buffalo Bill and sort of the production, the entertainment production that Buffalo Bill put together. And so those will be the 5 extra graduate books alongside the other readings.
and I've selected a variety of chapters from ethics anthologies, handbooks, companions, things like that, as well as chapters from other books and just scholarly journal articles from philosophers on the various topics that we'll cover, both for the graduate students and also for undergraduates who've already taken an ethics course and thus are already familiar with all of the Schaefer-Landau textbook. So in terms of the assessment and just kind of how the class will look week to week, as Dan said, we do want you to make some time to play some video games and, of course, make some time to do the reading. We will have discussion boards. We're going to do this through Yellow Dig instead of through Blackboard. We think that will make it a little smoother and a little easier and maybe a little just more fun for you all to engage in. And other than that, we're going to have a weekly journaling item, and so we expect you to keep a journal. Now, if we think of this as handwritten, and And so we want you to get some kind of, whether it's an actual journal or some loose leaf paper, however you want to do it. But I think our thought is, and based on some feedback from students last summer, it's kind of fun if you actually get a physical bound journal and then do it, because it's kind of creates a memory of the course, as well as kind of a memory log of your time in the game. And in journaling, you're going to kind of journal. We want you to kind of journal as if you're Arthur. If there are any obstacles to you doing this by hand, please just contact us. We'll find an alternate way for you to do it. Okay. But we want you to do that, and then you will scan and upload those. You'll have regular discussion boards. You're going to have one big paper. It's kind of a research paper that will occur in stages / drafts near the end of the course, or the latter kind of third of the course. And then about every 2 weeks, we'll have you do a reflection paper that will be relatively short. And really, it's just you kind of reflecting on the course material, your experience with the game, and how it's just affected your own thought, your own way of approaching and thinking about these issues. So there won't be any exams, no final exam, no midterm, anything like that. We don't have regular quizzes. It's just some written stuff. The journal is something we would suggest you kind of keep it by you while you're actually playing the game, so that, if something strikes you, you can kind of write it down or note it, or right after you're done playing, you could kind of write down your very short, journal entry. And then the discussion boards, again, should really just be a way for you to engage with other students, as well as with Dan and I. I don't know how often we're going to be commenting on the yellow dig, but we'll, of course, be reading it. And I think, we both have office hours during the normal workday, but I think we will also just try to make sure that we are available for you students who are, say, working adults or have other kind of commitments, to have some discussions with us via Zoom or another method. So,
And with the journaling activity, the journal, you wanna treat that too as a way. I mean, it's literally your memory of going through the game, but when you're writing the reflection papers, the journal is going to come in handy, because there'll be instances that perhaps you might not remember when you're doing the reflection paper, but if you go back through your journal, you'll see, like, oh, I remember when that happened, and you can write in the specifics too, like what exactly was happening. The other thing of that is, maybe even in the journal itself, you didn't necessarily get as detailed as you wanted, but there's enough stuff online. Say if there's a factory that you went to and you forgot a couple things you want to write about, enough people have played the game and written about it online that you can kind of go and find, well, what is exactly in there? What was the point of going in there? And then that'll jog your memory. So I take the journaling. I mean, on the one hand, it's fun where, you pretend you're Arthur, but on the other hand, this literally is your memory of the game, which all of your journaling will come into play with the reflection papers, with the
yes,
yellow dig, and the research paper, because with that research paper, it's balancing between the history that we're reading about, the philosophy that we're going to plug into the history and the game, and then the game itself. So the
yes.
the book is the book. You can always refer back to the book, but playing the game, once you play it, and if you didn't journal, a lot of that memory just disappears, or you might misremember it. So
That's
definitely
right.
take the journaling seriously.
Yeah, and yeah, thank you for adding that, Dan. And then the only other thing that I was thinking about in terms of the assessments are, as Dan said, the 3 stages. This final research paper is going to be a kind of combination. You are going to have to demonstrate, your own kind of knowledge and mastery of the history scholarship that we've studied, as well as your kind of knowledge and mastery of some of the philosophy and ethical theory, ethics scholarship that we've studied, and show how it kind of relates to specific incidents, situations, and moments in the game. And we will try to make that to be, as I said, a kind of draft or stage process. So your quote unquote stage 1 paper will be focused mostly on doing the kind of history part. Stage 2 will be focused on kind of doing the philosophy part, and kind of any other additional part. And then your stage 3 paper that's kind of the first complete draft, and we'll give you feedback on that before you turn it in for a final time. So I think that, the only other thing that I would mention is, if you've never played this game, or if you've never read about, any ethical theory or ethics dilemmas or history, I think maybe we should just note that there's just kind of a general content warning. The game does involve murder. It involves, attempted sexual assault. It talks about racism and slavery and genocide and all sorts of other kinds of things. And at points in Schaefer Landau, he will use examples like that to illustrate how certain ethical theories would apply or would not apply, what they would say about it, etc. So we just want to note that, in the game as well as in our conversation and content, there are going to be a lot of not necessarily graphic per se or explicit, but just there's a lot of content that is sort of can be morally challenging or psychologically challenging, and we just I think want to note that just to flag it for your own notice. So, is there anything that I've left out? Anything else you want to mention for our first kind of intro podcast, Dan?
I can't think of anything, but if you have questions about the syllabus or about the class, email us and we'll get back to you. I think, like Rob said, we can always schedule Zooms. My office hours are really, when you have time to Zoom, I'll just make time to schedule a Zoom when you're able to get to it. So we're pretty flexible.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. I think my office hours, which are listed on the syllabus, are set, but I think I also note there that it's those times, but also by appointment. And I'm happy to make time to meet with you, even if that means, if we need to, as long as we set it up in advance during an evening or a weekend. But we want to make sure that we are here to, we're here to support you and help you have a good, productive, engaging experience with the course. And so, please don't hesitate to reach out to us if you have any questions, if you're not sure about something, anything like that. Just communicate with us and let us know. And we're always here to help you learn and to help you engage with the course material and just to be a resource for you. Okay, so
all right. Well, should be. I think the schedule we're trying to keep here. For the week. So this is week 1. This will kind of be the podcast for week 1. Week 2's podcast most likely will be released on hopefully Friday of that week. It just depends. We're recording on Thursday, and then we have to prepare it, and then we're shooting though for Friday. That the podcast itself, and really the podcast is really just going to be us talking about the readings, weaving in the ethics and morality, and talking about the video game. So really it's probably good that you get through the week, you're doing the readings, playing the game, and then sort of at the end of the week you get to hear the podcast from us. So that's sort of the schedule of how things will unfold over the semester.
Yeah, and I think for us, our thought is that the podcast kind of helps as an additional resource for almost like lecture, almost like we want you to have the experience of as similar as possible of being like in a physical college classroom where you'd have lecture and discussion. And so one way to do that we thought was kind of interesting is to do a podcast every week about the content of that week. So. As Dr. McClure said, I think we're going to record them on Thursday and then try to have them up as quickly as possible, on Friday. So, and then and in general, our assignments are due Sunday night. So that would give you, plenty of time over the weekend to listen to the podcasts. That hopefully will help you understand the material or give you some context or the way that we might think about the material. And then it will hopefully be helpful to you when you're doing your assessments at the end of the week. So. All right. Well, we're really looking forward to having a great course with all of you, and hope that you're going to enjoy the content and enjoy playing Red Dead Redemption 2.
And we'll see you next week.